of called karbanos, offerings, sacrifices. We are in the laws of shkagos, which means inadvertent, meaning inadvertent sins that a person does, that when you do things mistakenly, that there's no such thing as a mistake. No such thing as a mistake. You could be compelled, that's not a mistake. If someone pushed you and because of that you knocked over the coffee, that's called compelled, right? That's not inadvertent. Inadvertent is I accidentally knocked the coffee, right? So in life, if you do something wrong, sinful, right, inadvertently, accidentally, you didn't mean to do it, well, the person needs to be mindful and aware, and you weren't aware of that moment, and therefore that's why you did it. The person should be aware. That's what makes you human. And therefore you're responsible. You become responsible because of a mistake. You weren't compelled, right? You weren't pushed. So therefore it's out of your, possibility of, right, of being responsible. But, you weren't careful. You left the coffee at the edge over here and then you knocked it, right? Okay, it's an accident, so, whatever. But mistakes that we make, we're responsible for. And therefore, that's why you have to bring an offering in the times of the Holy Temple on the altar, right? And that's what we're talking about. If you did it willfully, you spilt the coffee and you made a mess purposefully, you can't bring an offering because the offering will only atone for someone who did the mistake or did the wrong thing accidentally. Okay, that's the realm that we're talking about now. Rambam, as we were learning Chumash Rashi, right? What defines a poor person? You were asking, good question, right? But Rashi's not going to deal with that, right? But Rambam does. But sometimes Rambam goes and deals in the detail of the law. So the minutia is so like. So here the discussion is, if you did many sins, right? How many offerings you have to bring? If you did 5 sins, you have to bring 5 offerings? 1 offering? So some of the things we learn, that if you did in 1 act 5 things, right? We gave an example, in which I'm trying to remember what the example was from yesterday. Trying to remember what the example was.
Was not one sin but repeated several times?
No, that's a different scenario. Okay, let's take that scenario. If you did the same thing, right? You ate something that wasn't kosher, and you did it 5 times. In 5 times throughout the day, but unaware in between that it wasn't kosher, right? You bring only 1 sacrifice because it's considered like 1 act, right? It's 1, right? But if you ate 5 different things that weren't kosher, that would be 5 different, right? For example, right? But right? Or if you ate the same thing 5 times, but each time you became aware, someone told you, that's not kosher, and then you forgot. You forgot. Why you forgot, right? That's what part of the sin. How did you forget that this is not kosher? And then you partook of it, right? But you did in fact forget. What's the proof? That's not the point over here. It's the parameter of the law, right? And you forgot, and you ate it again. Then you would be responsible to bring 2 offerings, because each act becomes independent because there was an awareness, right? And now the awareness of this, now there's an awareness, a separate wrongdoing. Right? When you're unaware and you did it 5 times, so it's like the same thing. There was no awareness, but here you became aware that it was not kosher, and then you forgot, right? Is that clear? Okay, let's go into chapter 9 into some finer details over here. When there are 5 sins for which violation must bring a guilt offering, as opposed to a sin offering, a guilt offering. A sin offering means a definitive sin. A guilt offering is, well, let's see. Okay. It's called a definitive guilt offering because it is not brought because of a doubt. Usually a guilt offering means like not definitively guilty, right? That's usually what the guilt offering is. In other words, you have some guilt on you. It was questionable. It wasn't clear if this was a sin or not. Like you had 2 pieces of meat in front of you, one kosher or not, and you don't know which one you ate. Did you eat the kosher or non-kosher? Well, there's some guilt there, but it's not definitive. We're not certain. So you have to bring a guilt offering, not a sin offering, right? Now there's 5 sins that you actually bring a definitive guilt offering, right? Definitive because it's not brought in guilt, in doubt, right? And they are intimacy with a consecrated maidservant, robbery, misappropriation of sacred articles, the contraction of ritual impurity by a Nazarite, and the 5th thing is purification from affliction of a Nazarite. So what is implied by intimacy with a consecrated maiden servant? What is that? What's the scenario? So now you explain. When a man is intimate with a consecrated maid servant, what does it mean, consecrated maid servant? Anybody know? She's your maid servant, but you dedicated her, consecrated her for the usage of the holy temple, right?
There's a note here that says a woman who is half a Canaanite maidservant and half a free woman who is consecrated by a Hebrew servant.
Oh, sorry. Yes. Say that again.
A woman, and the Rambam here says, a woman who is half a Canaanite maidservant and half a free woman who is consecrated by a
Right.
Hebrew servant. That's no here.
Hold on 1 second. Right, Shivcha Charufa, right, is a woman, a maidservant, a Canaanite maidservant, that she was owned by 2 people. One of them freed her. She's only half free. The other one didn't. So it's got this funny law, right? And now a Hebrew servant consecrated her, right? Which he can't do that. Why can't he do that? Because she's half free only. If she was free, then he could entirely, then he could marry her. But she's only half free, so he can't marry her. Right? Got that? Very unusual case that we're talking about, right? So when a man is intimate with a consecrated maidservant, whether intentionally or inadvertently, he must bring a guilt offering, provided that she is past majority, age of majority, aware of the transgression, willfully participated, and she had previously engaged in relations in ordinary manner. And the relations were completed, so that she will be liable for lashes. There will be an investigation and we bring a guilt offering, because the verse says she receives lashes and he brings a sacrifice. So oh, wait a second. Okay, I confused this a bit. The Hebrew servant can marry this woman without right? So she's consecrated, means she's married to him, right? Someone else had relations, right, with her, not the person that consecrated her. I got it confused, right? Someone else had relations, right? That person who had relations So we're talking about she had to do the transgression willfully, participate, right? Where she would be also liable for lashes. In that instance, intentionally or inadvertently, he has to bring a guilt offering. Because that's what the verse says. Okay. I told you the minutia over here is great. Very great.
So he brings a guilt offering and
she receives lashes. Yeah. Not clear on that. Ah, okay.
Still a number of lashes that they're supposed to receive.
39. Or as much as the court of law feels the person could manage and handle.
So it's up to 39 lashes.
Not up to, yeah. Number 2, according to the oral tradition, it was taught in a situation where she is liable for lashes, he is liable for a sacrifice. When she is exempt for lashes, he is exempt for a sacrifice. Okay. When a youth who is 9 years old is intimate with a consecrated maidservant, she is liable for lashes and he's obligated to bring a sacrifice. It appears to me that he does not bring the sacrifice until he comes of age and attains intellectual maturity. It's interesting that even though he's under the age of majority, 13, right, not bar mitzvah, he still has to bring a sacrifice. Only when he becomes 13. Okay. We've already explained in Hills Bias Asuras the definition of term shifa charufa used in Torah is that the two are not liable until he is intimate with her in an ordinary manner and the relations were completed. Therefore, if two people tell him, you were intimate with a consecrated maidservant, and he said, I was not intimate with her, his word is accepted, and he does not bring a sacrifice as a result of their statements, for he knows whether or not he completed the relations. As in statements, I was not intimate can be interpreted, I did not complete relations.
So, Rabbi,
yes.
would it be difficult for anyone to accuse someone of being intimate with someone else, unless, they would be
right? That's why he's believed. Because how are you going to know that for sure, right? Right, and in this instance is just to oblige him to bring an offering, right, for atonement for what he did. So the Torah is very precise and specific. I don't even know if this ever happened in reality. This law that we're learning right now, I don't even know if it ever happened, such a thing. Because first of all, to have a maidservant that was owned by two people is not usual, right? People own their own servant, go in partnership. That itself is probably not too likely. And then if you did, one guy freed her and the other one didn't. So you leave her in limbo, right? She's in limbo. What's that about? But there's such a category in Jewish law. It's actually biblical law because the Torah speaks about it. But very unusual such a thing would ever happen, right? And then all of these details that have to be done, that she now was consecrated to get married, and someone else had intimate relations with her, and she had to have that willfully, and as everything we said over here, to oblige the one who. Wow. Okay. I would like to continue, but I actually have to have other obligations now. All right, folks.